Welcome back everybody, DestinysJesus here. In this video I'm be covering what I learned from the solo cash cup. I haven't actually tryharded or played one of these in the last 2 seasons, so I really don't have that much experience apart from the fact I've been coaching a lot of players and I kind of know how you should be playing in solo cash cups. Either way, it's a lot different putting it into practice, and I finished 108 points, which is still pretty decent for my first proper attempt at tryharding these. I'm covering some of the major mistakes that I made and a bunch of things that you guys can actually learn and implement from my gameplay and strategies that were working for me that you guys might be able to copy as well. As always, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Make sure to like and also subscribe if you're new. One thing I'd recommend in cash cuts, especially solos, is the fact you do need a proper warm up to allow yourself to W key properly in the first game. I didn't have any warm up in this cash cup, didn't even play any creative, so I had to play a lot more slow and methodical. This is a really nice counter peek you can do, this top right edit, when somebody jumps up like that, you can get a nice chunk. And also the fact whenever you're fighting attack off spawn, or just attack in mid game fights, you really don't need to right and peek the entire time. Right there I left hand peeked into him, and it was perfectly fine, just because I'm going to out damage him with a pump. One thing I noticed is the fact that my 50-50 rotates are really messy and I go through so many mats building angles I don't really need to. Right here I'm building in loads of extra mats that I don't need to, and I actually don't block off the essential angle, which is the one behind me. Luckily I hit a 1 pump and I'm able to carry into moving zones with pretty decent mats and full floppers. Important thing here, whenever you're rotating 50 zone, is don't run through old builds unless you essentially have to. Always try to level up, get into a box of hard mats to stop yourself getting server focused as well. So right here in the first game, this should be the easiest game, but I got max distance first moving. Probably the better call in hindsight, as I was thinking in the game, was to go towards the dead side where there's nobody. Instead I decided to recycle these old builds, and I'm building way too much here. I'm being way too greedy with my mats and just burning through way too many. I shouldn't be covering this many angles, especially since I have a shield fish. And instead, when I should be aware, which is right here, I'm not really paying attention. I run straight into another player and then end up burning through a lot of mats. In the end of this game, I actually died to Storm, which is pretty unfortunate. I got way too caught up on the backside of first moving, going for kills, and I died still with floppers momentary, which is pretty tragic to be honest. So I know a lot of you might be curious about what my drop spot is and maybe looking for a drop spot of your own that works really well for cash cups, and this is actually one of the ones that I recommend. I've been doing it for a long time now. It's actually got buffed over time throughout the seasons and nobody really knows about it, and it's not that contested, especially with good drops like I do. I didn't die spawn here once, apart from the one game I got bow headshot by the hacker, finished at top 5, but other than that I didn't die spawn once here. I didn't die mid game as well because of how good the rotates are. You land in this building, get 3 chests immediately. You can key over to this other building if a player lands in there. Normally you should get a free kill, or you just be able to get the barrels, plus the 2 fruit boxes, which is really nice. There's so many mechanical parts, you're pretty much guaranteed to upgrade. Normally you can get around 10 mechanical parts very easily from this parking area. You can also rotate over towards the skate park, as you can see here. There's options to go fish. You can also interact with this bot to get extra shield or bigs or something. And there's also the Scar NPC bot, which allows you to get a guaranteed purple Scar every game whenever you duel it. It's really easy to duel, just make sure you build some ramps as you do it, and you won't take any damage. I would really recommend this drop spot. There's loads of extra chests on the beach, and for rotates out, you can get a Lambo with wheels or just any truck with wheels, and you'll be perfectly fine for your rotates out as well. Alright, let's go on to the interesting part, which is actually me killing Grizzly4ZR, the French pro who actually plays with Tayson. So I don't know how I managed to do this, but somehow he's just ramping over towards me, and because of the fact that I'm landing at that west hand side spot, I've got way more loot and mats than him in this situation. He takes height with a gold pump, but luckily I'm able to cone him off, go for some side jumps here, and the most important thing whenever you're in a fight like this is to box up and wait for them to make a mistake. So you see here, I just decided to box up, make some extra space, make 2 boxes connected, which is really important. And this is a really unique counter peek that I've been working on and created for a while. Whenever somebody's pressuring you from this sidewall angle up here, where they're approaching from above, it's a very, really safe hand peek for them. If you have double movement, and most importantly, the wooting software, which is what I recommend, with 60 degrees on it, what you can go ahead and do is this really unique side peek. So you see here, max damage. It's really hard to predict for the other person. I'll go back and show a clip of 4-0 stream, and you basically just can't even see the other person as they jump out, and it's very easy to headshot. From here on, I've got 1 HP and he has a pump, so I'm just going to be really cautious with my peaks, and I take him out up top. Oh my god! So right here you can see how good this counter peek is versus somebody pressuring from above. This is 4-0 who got 2nd place in a cash cup, I believe, like 2 weeks ago or something. He's absolutely insane at fighting. You can see how off guard he gets caught off by it there. So one thing that I actually learned recently, and I copied from Hen's playstyle, is that he always goes really late on these first moving rotates, just to be able to recycle or maybe even possibly get a free kill. Right there, I catch the guy going for an aggressive W key. The guy that I knew used W key was just going to box up and try heal, so I was able to continue rotating after getting a refresh. Just simply jump on somebody last second on zone, and I have a really simple job of rotating through the dead side here, as I was doing, making sure I use my wood earlier on, and then I can continue using my metal when I get pressured a little bit later. So right here, a little bit later on, the zone actually pulls down a hill. I decided to go pretty much last second, hit a nice one pump in a second, and then I'll cover what my mistake was here in a second. Get the one on that player. The one thing I should be doing here is just making a lot more space, especially considering my mats, and just making space and getting into zone. The fact that I have a harpoon is really crucial, allowing me to get any type of refreshes on back end. Instead, I took this really dumb left-hand peek, got damaged for a lot, and then here again, I died to Storm. Important thing whenever you have those unlucky games where you could have done better, for sure this game I could have got top 3 minimum with the amount of mats I had, is just to keep your mentality strong, know that you can come back later on, despite a somewhat weak game. Whenever you have a weak game in a cash cup, the next game is going to be a lot easier, just because of how the elo matchmaking works. Right here, I was having a cash cup classic. This guy tagged me from 27, and he actually decided to W key me in Storm from ages away from zone. The important thing here is not to panic and just decide to play some really solid box fighting fundamentals and wait for a good counter peek. I'm not rushing anything here, taking unnecessary peek versus a purple pump. Instead, I'm just trying to tease and make sure the guy makes a mistake. You can see him dancing, kind of egging him on. That's going to force him to a mistake. And this is what I do. As soon as he aggroes this other wall, I make this L-shaped box. These L-shaped boxes, you've got 3 boxes connected to each other on the diagonal. Is actually really important here. It allows you to counter peek from a load of different directions and also can catch other players off guard. He's pressuring this one wall from above. I've got the edit control here. Get the cone as soon as I drop him down with the pump. I know to go for this crossbox peek from a distance away. Get an easy elim. That guy only got 1 shot on me that fight where I decided to trade, and other than that, it was a really clean fight by me. This fight shows a really good example of how you should be using blueprint editing when you're actually approaching a player. It's really good when it's not the best player, since oftentimes they're quite hard to predict. So you can see this guy's like doing really weird edits, not really in the best movement. I don't want to approach him too close, so I decided to blueprint edit with my wall blueprint out from a long distance away, catch him off guard with a cone slide, and then from there it's a really simple elim. So here is another example of just really good box fighting fundamentals and what you should do in this situation. Another player aggresses me really quickly and kind of caught me off guard. The important thing here is just to be very cautious with your counter peek, get the piece control from above, let them into my box there to get the 100 tag, and now in this situation, I know 1 shot from me will kill him, and if this guy hits a lucky pump as well, he'll be able to kill me. The important thing is not to rush this. I decided to try to bait him out a few times. I knew he was a somewhat decent player and probably wouldn't be fooled by this, so instead I decided to result, which is probably the best and most OP edit that you can do in a box fight when you've got somebody trapped like this. It's called the Aqua edit, since Aqua's been doing this since around World Cup time. You can imagine that other players' character model is towards the top right here, so very simply all you do is wait for them to be in the middle somewhere or towards the right hand side, edit, and then aim at their feet. Their character model and their gun is completely blocked by the stairs, so they'll simply just shoot the stairs and not even be able to see you, and you're able to get a nice shot on their feet just like that, and a really simple elim. This is something that you guys might have noticed that I've copied from Wolfie's playstyle, and also Vidal's been doing this for a while. It's these cones from underneath the floors. I use it in late game here really well. You can see how I'm able to do it. But as there's a guy boxed up above me, cone him, most importantly, get the close wall and get the cone below him. Now at this point he's full box. Obviously I can't really reach his backwards unless I was to jump up, so instead I decided to shoot the guy down and get the elim. Mind my friend screaming in the background, but I do get a really nice elim here. So let's get into this end game here, where I was actually able to get 2nd place. The one key thing that I'm doing is actually this Rich Homie Quinn strat that I actually learned from his video on my masterclass. Rich Homie Quinn, as you guys should know, is probably one of the best players and coaches in the world. He's always got some inventive strats, and there's one strategy that he covered in that video is the fact if you have a pepper popped or any type of movement in your own strat, like a hop flop or something, is you need to immediately move for 2nd moving. The key here on 2nd moving is to get as front side as possible, which is what I do here. Basically just ramp top the whole way forward, be as cheap as possible on mats. Also delayer, which is really important so you don't take any fall damage. And then when you're towards this front side position, then you start looking up on backside. You should be able to get really easy elims, or at least force the other player off height. So you see there, I forced that guy off height. Realised this other guy was contesting it from the back end as well. So again, I just keep front side, completely forget about high ground for a second here, and I will just start looking up for it in the second once I'm on the front side of the end of 2nd moving. Get that elim and Storm looking back, and then from here I basically just get gifted high ground because I've forced everybody else off it, and they've been contesting from the back end, whereas I've been contesting on the front end with peppers, which is probably one of the best strategies at the moment for these cash cups. Especially when the games aren't too stacked, just being aware of who's on high ground is probably the best thing to do. Okay, now let's actually get to what the mistake was this game. I was in a situation where I had no mats on height, I didn't get a refresh this entire moving zone, so I'm kind of just jumping around on the trees, trying to refarm a little bit, and this is where I should have been a lot more decisive. Instead, I decided to let this other player on low ground kill the other player. Now, it doesn't matter what HP this other player is at, they could be a 10, they could be a 200, I won't be able to know just because of the fact I've got 0 mats, and they've got that Siphon 150, which makes it really easy for them to take high ground. This guy simply ramps above me, from here I whiff a load of shots as he jumps down back and storm, and then from here just basically just ramps. The guy jumps down and storm at an angle I didn't predict, I'm not really able to track him properly, and I come second place. He was quite low HP, but he played that correctly, taking high ground, and then dropping down when I didn't expect it. So in this game, towards when I was on 78 points, I should have decided to play high ground. Normally I don't really play high ground in these events, but in this game I had no movement, and dropping down to low ground would probably have been a death sentence, especially since I had a really easy front side high ground hold. All you need to do very simply, pretty much doing the same thing in intros, is just make sure you're connected, staying above other people's layers, and also connecting several times. So here I get a little bit greedy for kills, but I probably should just focus on the front side, in case one of these other players were to look for it. So I just connect them very simply, and then just maintain in hard mats. The good thing with strategy, especially because moving zones are really wide, if you're staying on top of another player, you always have that connection form base, so when somebody else contests on the other side of the zone, or if they contest on backside, it's very simple for you to just go ahead and chop them out on the back. Okay, so let's actually cover how I was able to lose high ground this game. It should have been a really simple win, especially considering I'm still somewhat okay mats at this point. Only 200 builds isn't the best. I got way too greedy going for damage and trying to force these other players down. The result to me getting like chopped out, didn't even hear it. But then at this point, the important thing that I should have done is just, even the fact I'm 120 builds, is just to commit those mats into maintaining high ground. I should have started ramping up, gone properly up. Instead, I made the mistake of not ramping up towards the front side of the zone over here. Another player can test on the front, beams me, gets me really low HP, and then despite the fact that I'm actually trying to just side my box, they psycho me on back end. At this point, knowing I was getting psychoed and the guy probably needed a refresh, I should have just got out of the box, ran away from the situation, dropped down a few layers, but despite the fact I tried to stay, hit the guy 175 but died storm immediately after, which is pretty unfortunate. Still, 15 points just from a really simple high ground hold, took a really shambles game just from me getting first moving backwards and going up for it into a pretty decent end game with decent points. So this game was basically a whole load of rotational mistakes by me. I had a max distance 50-50 and a max distance first moving. I tried to go dead side and also just go straight for the middle, and I ended up really scuffed on backside. As you can see here, I'm not really able to rotate properly, got no mats to actually do so, so I have to go for a kill on backside. And normally whenever you do this, as you can see, is I didn't even get the full amount of mats, and that guy only had Siphon, judging on his play style. The issue is you're killing people on backside with no mats, then I'm forced to drop down low with 0 mats here, but still, not the best game, but still decent points. You have to keep on the bright side, especially in these cash cups, and not try to get too down on it. So in this next fight, I've been fighting this guy for a very long time, and he'd end up burning so many mats reboxing. This is our very last game, so I knew he was going to try to do something crazy and try to go for a one pump. You can't just disengage from this fight since it is pretty stacked. So at this point, you just have to wait with your pump and be as patient as possible, and able to get the easy heal him. Big thing there is the fact you can't rush that fight. I just basically spent the entire time pressuring him, making sure he couldn't heal, and then finally got into his box. I was able to get the heal him, and I'm able to farm up on dead side and just rotate very nicely into his next end game. Okay, so this is one of my last games here, as you can see. The next game I actually died to a hacker, which is pretty unfortunate. I'll basically run you through my thought process on rotating this 50-50 zones. I never got a single 50-50 zone, so I made it really crucial to make sure I had some kind of movement item, ideally through fishing. So right here I've got hop flopper, so I'm simply able to rotate. And the thing is, my mats aren't really the best in this position. I was on a very empty side of the zone because I went dead side earlier. So this means that I want to get a refresh on the way to 50-50. See this kid get cracked, assumed he was shambles, and I'm able to take him up as he peeks onto me. Important thing is to block your back here, and then just immediately, while you still got the pepper or the hop flop, whatever you have on, to actually keep on rotating. Don't waste too much time on backside of the zone. Simply go ahead, keep pressuring other people, which is why the gold tack is so effective in this case. So I can keep on pressuring these other people, and then just keep on to front side of the zone. You see, I just hop flopper once, get into zone, don't even get tagged throughout that entire rotate, and make a little bit more room where I can hold people behind me. Again here I get another max distance rotate, and this is why it's so crucial to make sure you've got some kind of movement. If I didn't have movement, even though the fact that I've got max mats, I probably would just die way earlier in this game. However, I'm going to break down how I misplayed this, and I probably could have played this situation for the win. What I think I should have done is, when I'm doing this free rotate here, after I pop my big, is I should have spent the extra time to try taking height. If you can take height in one of these lobbies and hold it throughout first moving, the chances of somebody contesting it later on in second moving is really slim. So you see, I started ramping up. I should have gone to connect to that metal towards my right hand side. Instead, I just ramped the whole way up onto height, started doing some kind of weird 90s, and then this is the point where I should have just maintained it properly. Instead, I got a little bit scared of other people contesting. I heard loads of people pepper rotating. I know we have mountain zones, so it's quite likely somebody else will play for height. Ended up just ditching off height. I could have really easily held it here, and looking back, this is probably the biggest mistake I made of this tourney. Instead, for some reason, I decided to drop down off literally free high ground and tried to maintain it here. As soon as I drop down, you see some other players will start contesting it. I've wasted loads of mats for no reason. I get chopped out and then take full damage. And at that point, I'm like, okay, alright, I'll just dip it. And instead, I'll just continue rotating on this far left side of the zone. I do a pretty cheap and effective tarp. This would be perfectly fine if I didn't just have high ground for free. And then from there, I'm just in a situation where no way I can go for height, so I have to keep on playing mid ground and I have to keep on burning through my mats. Right here I tried going for a refresh, but I really wasn't able to go for it, just because of the fact that I'm really not in a position to actually jump in some of these blocks. If I saved that HP from earlier, I didn't have to go for a kill on complete backside like I was trying to do here, I'm doing perfectly fine. I do a good job of just recycling on top of these other player builds, and I get into front side of the zone here. As you can see, I go the whole way in front, get towards this tree, and at this point I've just got barely enough mats to cover myself. However, a player runs around in storm and actually takes me out. I do hear them and spin on them in time, but I'm not able to kill them. Top 15, of course the kid is 1 HP, pretty unfortunate, but you're not going to believe what happened in the last game when I probably could have maybe made an effort to win the game as well. Back this week with another upcoming pro player review. Here we've got Diego GB, not the real one of course, but this guy's absolutely insane with the bows, as you guys might be able to predict. A really nice shot onto this first player coming out of Sky, and then let's take a look at who he's able to kill on this next player. Beautiful, nice little quick scope onto Phazels there on 108 points, dies their last game, amazing stuff. I really do appreciate the anti-cheat and all the effort that's going into making the Cash Cups competitive and fair. Keep it up, Epic Games, really enjoying the season so far.